In this video, we'll look at liquid watercolor, which is concentrated watercolor paint that can be diluted with water, and it is transparent, meaning there's no white. The white is just from the color of the paper. So you'll need some water. You'll need scratch paper. It's helpful to test colors you mix on scratch paper. You can use a palette to mix on. You'll also need brushes and these little containers. When you put some liquid watercolor in the little container, put in only enough to just cover the bottom of the container. You don't need a lot of liquid watercolor paint because it's concentrated, meaning the color's very strong. When you're mixing colors on your palette, start with your lighter color. So if I'm mixing a green, I'm starting with this yellow, and then I'm going to slowly add blue until I get a green color that I like. If I want to test it before I put it on my paper, I can test it on my scratch paper. It's also important to try different amounts of water with your watercolor paint. Remember to clean your brush between different colors. So here I'm adding a lot of water to my blue paint, and you can see because it's transparent, it becomes light blue because I'm painting on white paper. But if I use not a lot of water and I just use that concentrate, it's a really nice dark blue. Another technique is to start with wet paper. Then add your pigment into the water on the wet paper. The water that's on the paper disperses the pigment and you get a pretty cool effect. It's also a nice way to start blending colors directly on your paper. Some other techniques that are fun to try are splatter painting. Remember to hold your brush so that it's right over your paper and tap it with one finger near the bristles or the hairs on the brush. And finally, one more technique to think about is starting with a good bit of watery pigment, and you can place saran wrap on top. You can kind of already see the effect I'm going to get when I pull that saran wrap up, but I have to let it dry. You can also start with wet paint and sprinkle salt, and you can see you get this cool crystal effect. When you're done, one person takes all of the brushes at the table and washes them off by wiping the brush in their hand under running water and then dabbing the brush dry. Another person can take all of the palettes from your table, rinse them off under running water, and dry them. If you have a ton of extra pigment in a container, let me know. Otherwise, if you've used most of your pigment, go ahead and just rinse those containers out. And then one other person at your table needs to make sure all of the caps are on secure. Lastly, somebody needs to put all the water down the sink. This is Lord Sanchez. She's a watercolor artist. This is also a watercolor painting made by Dima Rebus. And finally, this is Amy Park, another watercolor painting.